I can clearly remember the evenings my dad and I would sit and watch as the sun would set into the horizon and the moon would peek its way out. Outside, exposed in the sticky weather of the valley, it was always the same routine, the way one of his stories from his infancy would start. Mija, cuando yo era niño. It was always those little things that I always treasured, because for that moment, if only an instant, I truly felt like I knew exactly who I was. This is me, and this is where I live. Having spent most of my life in the bubble of the valley, I never knew I was different from others. I thought everyone lived the same life as I did. Tacos de chorizo con huevo in the morning, digging and rolling on giant piles of clothes in segundas in the afternoon, or gathering around a small TV watching novelas by evening. I always thought everyone did the same thing, that we all came from the same people. I didn't think my life was different at all. Both of my parents came from very poor families in Mexico. My dad, the male out of 6, had to give up his education so my grandparents could afford paying for the others. Out of necessity, my dad left his home at 13 and came to the U.S. to work in the fields. My mother, on the other hand, dropped out of school. She lacked the motivation from her family to continue in education since to them it was only a waste of time. She was much rather needed tending her house than school. My sister was 2 when my parents decided to immigrate to the U.S. They were not going to let their children's dreams be stopped like theirs were. As a kid, I didn't really know what discrimination meant. Even as other kids teased me in grade school for always doing things and looking different, I never understood. I thought eating tacos every day that my mom made for me was normal. I thought speaking Spanish first was normal. I thought my life was normal. But it wasn't until the years passed that I began to see the differences between me and them. Me and them because I was suddenly not part of being normal. I was a Mexican kid, the girl with a Mexican family. In a desperate need to fit in, I began to Americanize myself more. I hated everything that made me mexicana, porque no era igual. I hated that I was morena y no blanca, that my parents spoke Spanish and couldn't even speak English properly. I hated everything that made me me, and I was only 11 years old. I was losing myself, and I didn't know who I was. I often felt like I sat in this fence, being neither fully belonging on either side, just being nothing. I was never Mexican enough. No sabía cómo hablar español correcto, the history. I didn't know how to be an overly loud, cheerful, festive Mexican. Era muy americana, but I was never American enough either. My first language was Spanish. I was raised with Mexican traditions, beliefs, values. I lived my life thinking I had the freedom of any American, that I was the same. But the color of my skin, the accent in my tongue prevented it. I was different. I was different in the aspect that I was first generation Hispanic. Unlike my friends who were 3rd or 4th, I was the first to be torn between 2 countries, having been equally exposed to everything. But everything changed the day my older sister graduated, for she was the first in my entire family to persevere besides her challenges. Por ella, yo cambié. Yes, I was different, but being different made me that more special. 18 years later, I still have a problem with labeling myself. Whether I'm Chicana, Mexican American, Hispanic, Latina, somehow I don't feel the need to label myself anymore. It may be troubling at times to figure out my identity and set myself on some firm ground. However, I like to consider myself as a border child, someone who sits on the fence, someone who is a product of 2 places with totally contrasting different cultures, but somehow meshes perfectly inside me. Una mixtura. As I've always liked to say, blood runs Mexican, but heart beats American. I may be Mexican por sangre, pero el corazón es americano. And it's as simple as that. Under the stars, under the sky, under the moon, sitting there on American soil while my dad was talking about leyendas, I knew that I had the best of both worlds.